There's an old adage that you should never meet your heroes, and that doesn't just apply to people, it can apply to games too. Arsenal club football was a game that I held in very, very high esteem. I had incredibly fond memories of this game that I probably should have left alone. I've no idea how popular the club football games were really, but I know that I had the Arsenal ones and I played the absolute shit out of them, and having gone back, I'm trying to figure out why. For those unfamiliar with the game, it released in 2003, was produced by Codemasters and had the unique angle of being targeted at specific clubs. If you pick up the Celtic edition, you could only play as Celtic through the main parts of the game. To play as any of the other teams, you would need to play a kick-off match. The first version of the game, and the one we're looking at here, was released with branding for AC Milan, Ajax, Arsenal, Aston Villa, Borussia Dortmund, Celtic, Chelsea, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, Inter, Hamburg, Juve, Liverpool, Man United, Rangers and Real Madrid. So that's a fair few teams, but it immediately locked the game down to appealing to only fans of those clubs. A bizarre choice that would probably ultimately hurt the game, as it would become an absolute nightmare from a sales and logistical point of view. The reason for this approach? Those bastards at EA had licensing all sewn up, even back then. So in a similar way to the way Pez does now, Codemasters went out and struck individual deals with clubs at a cost of millions upon millions. That could, and perhaps should, have been enough to sink the game. It tanked in stores, cost a shitload of money and was far from critically acclaimed. Eurogamer gave it a 3 out of 10, saying that, quote, it played like a dead dog. But Codemasters stuck by it and released the second version of the game the following year, which we'll come back to in another video. You've got custom tournaments and league setups, as well as the Super League, which is basically the Champions League, involving all of the teams that had a copy of the game created. But the meat of the game is the domestic season. Here, your dreams come true as you get to create yourself and play for whichever team is on the box. The customization is pretty standard: punch your name and age in, choose your position and commentary name. I thought my surname would be generic enough to be in there, but it's not. Mingo is though. Mingo. I guess I'll be Moles. On then to the all-important player customization. It's just deep enough to get you pretty close to how you look, but not so deep you get lost in it. I do like that you can inflate players up to these proportions though. Look at that chubby fucker. Is he picking his nose? Body done onto faces. Everything you'd expect is here. Facial hair, eyebrows, sideburns, some amazing moustaches. I have massive ears, and thankfully that's something I can add in too. Pob. Perfect, looks just like me. Then we get into skills. You get a starting budget of 375 points with all of your stats set at 50, and from there you can bump up your stamina, strength, power and so on. Not that it makes a blind bit of difference on the pitch. So it's kind of like an incredibly early version of player career mode, but sadly it lacks any of that progression or depth. Lineker is on match duty. He got about a bit at that time, and Barry Davis provided the match commentary.
Highbury is the setting for a vital league clash between two of football's biggest rivals, Arsenal and Manchester United. As the players warm up, let's have a look at today's teams. Arsenal will line up with a flat back four across the middle of the park and the two strikers up front. Manchester United were playing the familiar 4-4-2 formation. I think they'll try and soak up the pressure, defend from deep and try to hit their opponents on the break. This is one player who I'll be keeping an eye on during the match. He's a great all-rounder, a fine passer and an outstanding finisher. Well, kick-off is nearly upon us, so let's join Barry Davis in the commentary box.
Thanks, Gary. Arsenal get the match underway.
So as you can see, presentation is actually pretty good, and the same can be said for player likenesses. Now I know they had far less players to worry about, but in a time before proper face scanning techniques, the player likenesses here are really good, I think. Same goes for the stadiums. Again, they had less to create, but the ones they've done are genuinely brilliant, so visually it all checks out. There's talented guys doing the audio, and there were other touches afforded Codemasters by licensing clubs individual, like the inclusion of real managers, but sadly Eurogamer were right, it plays like a dead dog. I remember loving this game, as I say, it just hasn't aged very well at all. The biggest issue is the input lag. First time passes, no way, not a chance. There's honestly sometimes like a 2-second lag from button press to action. It's incredible, and even more noticeable when you're using your creative player, because they're shit anyway.
The referee will have to act. The referee has no option but to show a red card.
The problem, I think, was the engine. Where FIFA and PES had been building upon their engine for X amount of years, this was a new engine for a new football game that really struggled. If you thought first touch control had teething issues, look at these beauties.
Good day. That's well intercepted.
Features like bringing the keeper out were included, which is admirable, but it just didn't work well at all. Look at this. The ball spin mechanic from set pieces that would later be seen in FIFA 2005 is a good touch and makes scoring free kicks a little bit easier, but that's probably the coolest thing here. Scoring goals is really fun, but getting there is a constant fight, especially as defenders and keepers just constantly freeze and just stand still. To play as any team other than the one on the box, you need to go to an exhibition match, which does open the game up a bit as they've included all the available teams and stadiums on every disc, so you can use them all. They're just buried behind the main portion of the game. Should you actually manage to wade your way through a full season or trophy, you'll be rewarded with a trophy for your trophy cabinet, and tucked away with that there's some other pretty cool stuff like club profiles, honours lists, team photos, player profiles. It's all nice, but it's window dressing on a game that has not stood the test of time. I will revisit the 2005 season release of Club Football because I think that one was an improvement. Let's be honest, it's gonna be, isn't it? But I think this one's going back in the drawer, never to be seen again.